I always tell people that you're more capable than you think you are.
Be original. Don't be like the guy on the radio. Great music will prevail. So I would tell people, make great music. Don't make other people's music. Make your own.
Money don't make me, so I just say, you know what? I just gotta be happy in my life. Build your team. Look around you. Figure out all these parts, because you can't do it all yourself. You're gonna burn out and get tired.
Never burn any bridges. You never know who someone's gonna be.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer.
Welcome to the Indie Playbook, presented by Focus Noise. Ad-free until we sell out.
That's right. I'm your host, Eric Abel. This is episode 13. Welcome back. If you've been enjoying what you've heard so far, please make sure to tell a friend, spread the word, let them know to subscribe on the podcast app, and they can check out all the back episodes on FocusNoise.com. And today's episode is Adam Hamilton, who's a very talented musician, producer, and composer, and he was discovered by CC Deville from Poison, who moved him out to LA, eventually ended up in the band LA Guns. He's worked with everyone from Angie Stone to Vanilla Ice to William Shatner, so that should tell you how diverse his abilities are. And we also really get into publishing. So if you're interested in getting your music in film or TV, this is a great episode for you, and Adam makes it all very simple. So check it out. Again, if you enjoy what you hear, please spread the word, tell a friend to tell a friend, and let's get into it. All right, so I'm looking at your credits that Nick sent me.
My incredibly incomplete credits.
They're incomplete?
Oh, yeah. I just played on a record a couple of years ago. 5 records that didn't get put on All Music. So, you know, it's a constant it's a constant battle trying to get your credits up nowadays because, you know, when you're doing it for indie labels, doing stuff for indies, a lot of times, you know, they're not... it used to be people would spend a lot more time and put a lot more emphasis on, like, let's make sure everybody who performed on this record, whatever they did, we got to give them credit. Now it's just like next. You know, they're pumping out so much, throwing it at the wall and hoping, seeing if it sticks, and what doesn't, are running down the road, and they're not worried about that. So
has it become more of a work for hire thing now? Just here, we gave you your money for your session, and you don't need credit.
Yeah, and it's not that they're not a lot of labels aren't willing to give you credit. It's just because budgets are so bad, you know, because it's the business is the way it is now. You get paid, and then you're probably not getting anything on the back end if you're doing a session as a session player. So you got to get a credit. I mean, you want to, that's part of your resume. You know, it's like working for a big company and doing a great project and then not having your name attached to it. It's
right.
Like, but that's just not right, you know.
But that should be the easy part for them, giving credit.
It is. Yeah, but you know what? It's just like everything in the world. Everything's moving so fast today, and I think it's you really have to make an effort. I find that whenever I do a session, whatever it is, even producing a record, sometimes they'll be doing the artwork and they're not thinking credits. They're just thinking art, and they're thinking all this stuff, and you got to say, hey, listen, this guy engineered the record. I produced it, or I played on it, or whatever I do it. I would like my credit to read like this, and they're usually great.
Right.
But you have to make sure your credit gets added. That's part of it. It's part of your resume. I played on an amazing Angie Stone soul record, and I did drum tracks on it, and my name doesn't appear on the record at all, So
that's too bad.
Like, well, I can pass that around as showing my work.
Yeah.
But how do you prove it's you? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's one thing. You gotta fight for your credit. You gotta make sure they add your name, because these days, probably not getting paid too much. We used to have, back in the 80s, and Jamie and his brother can attest to this. They would spend 2 days in a studio, $2,000 a day studio, with racks of drums, listening to drums and miking drums and getting that right. Are you kidding? That kind of, people are making records for $2,000 today,
Right.
On a laptop.
Yeah.
So times have changed. You got to change with them. Got to keep evolving, but it's just a different world.
So does that make it even more important to brand yourself now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know how that is. That's tough for guys like me who came from, listen, when I was born, there was no internet. There was, they didn't even have CDs. I was born back in the 60s, in the dark ages.
Right.
So seeing that curve of evolution of technology and the way the world has changed, that's tough for older guys to go, man, I got to keep up with the times and branding. We called them bands back in the day, not brands.
Right.
It's just a different ideology. It's a different world we live in now. And
Yeah.
so, you really have to keep up with it. Yeah.
So
you
what
really
was
have to
the
look at it.
first album you heard as a kid that made you want to get into music?
Man, the first album, I was really lucky. My dad was an audiophile when he had just the great old huge Marantz stereos and the big speakers in the corners and loved to listen to music really loud. And he just had a stack of records. He had everything from Fleetwood Mac to Eagles, I don't even remember, Three Dog Night. He just had all sorts of cool, old school music. And I just remember going through his collection and listening to everything he had. And there wasn't really one record that turned me on as a kid that where it all kind of clicked. There was just a stack of them, There was just a stack of them. And plus I just put it on FM radio and just listened to everything on it. And I, at some point since I was 3 years old, every year I would discover a whole new, I would have an epiphany, and I'd be like, oh my God, James Brown is the greatest thing in the whole world.
Yeah.
And then the next year I'd be like, oh my God, the Eagles are some of the greatest harmonies I've ever heard in my life. And the next year I'd be like, oh my God, Kiss is exploding stuff and jumping off the stuff. This is the coolest thing ever. So I just was so excited about music. And back in the day before the internet, you lived in a state of wonder if you loved something because you couldn't find out about it all the time. So you'd be like, God, I wonder what this is all about. And you just used your imagination and you just got so excited. And anytime you saw something about that band or that artist or that whatever you loved, it was so exciting. You couldn't just look it up on the internet and see what they were eating for breakfast right now,
Yeah.
And to me, life was so exciting, and so I just discovered so much like that. Now I guess you can discover a lot more, a lot quicker. It's all at your fingertips. But there wasn't necessarily one album. I think as I grow and evolved, I would just something would get on my radar, and it would just be the greatest thing I'd ever heard. It would just change my life. And the greatest thing about that is because I was exposed to so many different kinds of music as a kid, I loved playing all that music. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Louisiana playing in, blues bars when I was, 15, and then I played in rock bands. And then when hip hop came along and MTV first came on, I was totally turned on to that. When, you name it, if it was new and exciting, and we didn't have a million things coming at us all the time. You could digest things and really get excited about things back then,
Yeah.
Now you have to sort through so much stuff. You almost have to duck and get out of the way. There's just so much coming at you. You have to really take time to discover great things now and dig down and get past all the crap that's out there and get into what's really cool and inspiring.
Right.
Back then it was just different. It was different. Things would come along and you would have time to really it would blow your mind and you'd have time to get into it. And then you just wanted to find out everything about that and go see them and find out what they were doing. And
it moves way too quick now.
Yeah, it moves way too quick.
So is it that background that has made you, I would say, probably the only person who's worked with William Shatner and Vanilla Ice, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. That's the great thing is when I moved to LA in 94, because I loved all these different kinds of music, I got a chance to work with, I got to play on soul records, Angie Stone. I got to work with heavy metal bands. I got to work with, all these, Vanilla Ice. Who thought I'd produce a Vanilla Ice album? Well, we won't talk about that one because that one's, it was a disaster. But yeah, man, that's the thing is most people are so specialized in what they do. Hip hop guys usually just work in hip hop. Rock guys usually work in rock. I got to work with everything you could ever imagine, because I just loved all that.
How important was that move to LA for you?
Oh, crucial. Absolutely crucial. I don't think it's as important today because of the internet, because you can live anywhere and I can get 90% of what I do done via the internet now. I could live back in Louisiana and do sessions and send them over the wire, put them on the server and send my tracks where I couldn't do that before.
But imagine you were, you're 20 years younger now and you were in the same position, but today, would you still move to LA?
I don't know. That's a good question. When I was a kid, Hollywood, LA was the magic place. I mean, every movie, every TV show you saw it on, you were like, God, I just want to go to Hollywood. I want to go out there. I want to see what it's all about. The weather and the beach, the palm trees, the movie stars, the rock stars. It's just a magic place, Right. I don't know. That's tough to say, but I knew that where I was at when I was in my 20s, in the 90s, to do what I wanted to do, which was play in bands, make records, eventually produce records, do music for TV and film, I had to move here. This was the place. You know? You could move to New York, but New York's, man, it's a dogfight. It's just survival of the fittest every day. This place, it's expensive to live, but it's like, man, we live in paradise out here. You can do it. It's doable.
I mean,
out here.
I just, from my own personal experience, feel like in moving to LA, and I've done New York too, but just being around people who are making things happen and being on their mind when they need something to happen makes a huge difference. If you're out in the middle of Nebraska and someone needs something done in 24 hours, they might not be thinking about you.
No, you're absolutely right. I think being out in Nebraska, though, for certain types of acts can actually be kind of cool to be discovered, because you might have your own scene going there, and so in a small percentage of times it can work to your advantage. But I completely agree with you. I mean, if somebody calls me up and says, hey, come in for a meeting tomorrow, I don't have to book a flight and try to figure out how to get out to LA and where to stay and all this stuff. It's like I just say, okay, traffic's going to take this long. It's going to take me an hour to get there. And
take me 4 hours and I'll be there.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, absolutely right, man. Putting yourself in a place to be at the right time and the right place. When I moved out here, I always had heard that, and I understood the concept of that theory of being in the right place at the right time. But really being in a place where I was at a club one night and Billy Idol showed up and wanted to jam, and I got to play an hour with Billy Idol, and because I knew all those songs, I knew, I was ready. I was at the right place at the right time, and the opportunity was like, hey, man, I love this guy as a kid. Let's get up and jam. And an hour later at a club called Union on Sunset.
Yeah, so in L.A.
Yeah.
Huh? But see, I'm saying in L.A.
Exactly. It's not essential, but listen, if you want to be in the business, man, go to where the business is. Yeah. I agree with you.
That's
there.
how I look at
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So who gave you your first big opportunity, and what do you think they saw in you?
Well, the first, I call it, I had a series of breaks that happened after looking back at the last 25 years of being in the business. And the first, big break I got was I was living in Austin, Texas back in like 91 or 92. I was playing at a club down on 6th Street, playing drums in a band. And 6th Street is just a great little music scene. There's crazy. Lots of music. And the guitar player named CeCe Deville from Poison, he was in town playing. They were going to play at the Frank Irwin Center. And he came in the night before, and he saw me playing, and I saw him, and I go, I know who that dude is. I got to go meet him. And I immediately went over and shook his hand and said, hey, I'm playing upstairs. Will you come up and see me? Come up and jam with us. And I immediately said, that's the thing about it, is when you see an opportunity like that, you got to act on it right then. Don't think, because the minute you think about something, somebody's going to come right by you and take that opportunity, or it might be gone.
That's a great point.
And that's one thing I learned about the business. Anything in LA is like, you don't think, you just got to act. You got to react, And I saw him, and I went right over to him and invited him up. We hit it off. He came up and jammed with me. He was like tripping on how I was playing drums. I mean, back then I was like Travis Barker. I was just knocking everything over. Right. I was just, the more I destroyed in a night, the better it was a night, Yeah. So he loved that. And he immediately came over to me and goes, you're coming to the concert tomorrow night. I'm getting ready to quit the band. And after I do, I'm going to start a band. I'm going to fly you to Hollywood. You're going to live with me in my house up in the Hollywood Hills. And you're going to make it, So how surreal was that experience? It was the experience. I got to experience what, like the movie Rockstar, Mark Wahlberg, where he lays in bed and he looks at the posters and he dreams about this thing happening. It's like, God made that happen in my life. I got to experience that. And he did what he said. He flew me out to LA. I lived with him. We were in all the rock magazines and posters. I got to experience all that without having to really pay my dues and coming out to LA and struggle, which was kind of doing it backwards in a sense.
But you paid your dues
I kind of did
before that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely, felt like I really put in the time. I used to practice a lot. I used to really sit myself down. I hated practicing, but I used to sit down and just play. Whatever that craft is you do, you got to just do it. You got to do it till you're sick of it every day, and that's how you make it. You just literally, if you leave that whether it's singing, playing an instrument, DJing, whatever it is, they always used to say you got to like put in so many thousands of hours.
10,000 hours.
Yeah, I always heard that. And
the Malcolm Gladwell.
I always wondered what that whole ideology was, where it came from. So thank you. But it's true, man. I don't know if that number is true, but it's you really have to. The people that make it are the people that are obsessive about it. They just this is what there's no taking no for an answer. You just gotta do it till you're blue in the face,
Right.
But so I moved out to do that, and then I got to see both sides of things. I got to go to all the red carpet premieres and meet all the Hollywood, live at the top of the hill, with the panoramic view of everything. And I was like, all right, 3 months later, I'm like, we're still just kind of jamming. We never made a record. There was a lot of drugs in the scene. And I got to see how dark that other side of and I got to also see how that prohibited him at the time. He's a great guy. He's totally clean now, and he's an amazing, amazing father. And I will always love that cat, because he was the one that gave me my break, but I also saw how drugs really derailed him, and really took that down and made it so that the project that we were trying to do never happened.
Did that experience make fame seem not as appealing?
It's, I think when I was younger, I was a lot more excited about being famous, but I always knew that I just wanted. I knew that I did terrible in school. I was, music was the only thing I did, and when I did play music, I won talent shows and all that stuff. So that was exciting,
right.
And I was a kid who I was short, I was kind of skinny, and but when I played the drums, I could like have enough confidence to talk to girls and have girlfriends and stuff. So music was always a thing. So that was always a part of it that excited me. But when I came out here, I realized that like nowadays people want to be famous just to be famous, and it's like, yeah. It
still comes back to getting girls.
Yeah, exactly. Girls and money, right?
Is that the motivation?
Well, listen, playing rock and roll, that's what it's all about. It's all about, look, now it's like I want to obviously take care of my family, my little girl, my wife, my priorities have changed. But man, back in the day, you're right. It's all about meeting the ladies, and that was a great way to do it. And I realized also that with a little bit of fame, you can do amazing things with that because it gives you a bit of a platform, Yeah. So you can do things like this that talk to people, do podcasts that are helping young musicians and artists, to give them a little bit of inspiration, or maybe like you can say, hey, listen, this is what I did, or this is what I did wrong, Maybe it can help you.
Yeah, which brings me to a question: did you make any big mistakes when you were trying to get people to notice you?
Oh boy, did I ever!
Yeah,
I was the king of being an idiot and showing off and doing things that really, my ego was just way out of whack. I had to get right size later in life and realize that I actually enjoy being behind the scenes more now than I do being a showboat, being out in the spotlight and saying, hey, look at me, turning cartwheels on stage,
Yeah.
But yeah, I did some stupid stuff along the way and made horrible mistakes.
So what's one that comes to mind?
Oh, just we would go out and make fools of ourselves, and we'd play shows, and we'd play at the Playboy Mansion and end up, just going nuts and just waking up the next day going, God, what did I do? I'm glad there weren't camera phones, and just doing that in Hollywood, just being young and stupid, just being young and stupid and doing things where you go, man, my mom and dad did not raise me to be that person, but you know what? I can learn from it, and I could look back on it. Now I can laugh at it. And, that's part of growing up,
Was there one point in your life or one situation that kind of made you realize like I don't need to make a fool of myself? I need to be more aware of what I'm doing.
I don't think there was one defining moment for that. I think that I had just done enough of that over time where I just said, I think I got sober and stopped partying about 12 years ago. And I think I would probably say that's probably the defining moment, is when I did that. I got to learn a lot about myself, and I got to look at everything I had been doing in my life. And I just kind of said, this isn't working for me. I'm making a fool of myself. This is just holding me back. I'm one of those people that just has that ism where that when I drink or party, I just, I just act like an idiot,
Was that when you were with LA Guns that you got sober?
I actually got sober. Yeah, actually it was. I had gotten sober toward the 6th year that I was in the band, which was a lot longer than I had actually intended on playing with them. Because I kind of had a plan where I said, I'm just going to play with them for a couple of years, do something different, and then hopefully I'll segue off that and just start producing. And I'd gotten engaged, was going to be married in about 6 months, and something clicked one crazy wild weekend. My wife was out of town on a business trip, my fiance at the time. And me and a buddy of mine went out partying, and we almost burned her place down by accident because we were just crazy that night, And I just woke up that morning and said, I gotta stop this. And I got sober. And when I got sober, that's when the kind of the veil kind of comes off, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa. I was literally on stage in my first couple of months of being sober, and I was like a deer caught in headlights. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much I was relying on booze and drugs to take away my inhibitions and fears.
Right.
I mean, I would get on stage and just destroy stuff and throw guitars and, just live the rock and roll lifestyle. And, that was just part of it. But I remember standing there, and I literally turned around to the drums, and I was just playing the show, and I could barely move because I was like, I'm terrified, I had to learn to do it sober. And that was one of the defining moments where I was just like, man, I got to stop all that because I'm doing things that I'm regretting doing. And, they say, you don't want to live with regrets, no regrets. But man, I have so many regrets, so many people I hurt and made, and so many times I made a fool of. I don't have to live that way anymore. But I lived enough of that. And that was one of those moments where, and I knew I was getting married in 6 months, and I went, I got to do this. This is time. It's time. And I'm glad I did. It was one of the greatest things I ever did. But at the same time, I'm glad I got to live that life. I'm glad I got to tour the world and go, tour buses and do everything I ever dreamed about doing. I got to go do that and go to places, go to Rome, Berlin, London, you name it, many times. So, I'm being blessed with having gotten to have my cake and eat it too, as the saying goes,
Yeah. And then you've also got a lot of TV and film placements.
Yeah.
So do you have a publisher who shops your music, or is this all something you do?
I met a guy the year I moved out here at a wedding reception. And once again, it's that thing of being at the right place at the right time. I got invited to a wedding reception. I went, sat down next to a guy. We started talking, and I said, he's like, what do you do? I said, I'm a musician, and I write music. And he said, oh, cool. And I said, he said, what? I said, what do you do? He goes, well, I just started a little company placing music in TV and film and commercial. I'm like, well, that's funny. That's what I'm trying to do out here. I want to try to start licensing my music. And so he said, send me your stuff. So literally the next week, he had already placed a song of mine in a TV show. So it was being in the right place at the right time. So that I kind of I was blessed to get in on the ground level with a guy who started a company who then it became a multi-million-dollar company that he sold to Universal Music. So now I've got almost 500 songs in the Universal catalog that they're shopping all around. So the great thing is I'll get calls saying, hey, they're going to use your song, one of these songs in a TV show or this movie or this commercial. I mean, if you turned on the TV right now, I could probably show you something that's on, And the good news is when you land something in a movie, then it ends up on TV. And if it's a big movie, like I had a song in the Bourne Identity, the first Jason Bourne movie, that airs almost weekly, Sex and the City 2 is another one that I saw that on 6 times last week. So every time it airs, I get paid.
Yeah.
And then it airs in, all around the world. It airs, you get, royalty sheets from all these countries because it airs, but all the music's the same. So even though it's subtitled in a different country, you're still getting paid. So it's an amazing thing. It's pretty fascinating. But I 20 years of doing that. But yeah, that to answer your question in a long roundabout way, I got in with a guy who was essentially he's like an agent doing that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of companies out here that do that. But there's a lot of companies that I wouldn't waste my time talking to, you know. And when you do get into that game, there's a lot of compromise that happens nowadays, particularly because a lot of these people, you know, what happens is songwriting is split into two ways. You know, there's the writer's share and there's the publisher share of a song. And if you don't have a publisher, you get both sides of that income stream. But you kind of need a publisher to work the song, to get it out there. So you have to give up that half. But now a lot of the publishers are kind of saying, well, we want a little bit of the writer's share, kind of that old school 50s way
grab
of
as much
grabbing,
as they can, yeah.
Exactly, that greedy, give me a piece of the pie. And unfortunately, because of the last few years of people getting away with doing that legally, they say, well, then we're not going to work your song. So they kind of have you over a barrel, and that's kind of the way it is now. You have to kind of be willing to pay to play a little bit. And I was really upset about that, you know, years ago when they first started doing that. But that's just the way it is, and you have to realize that if you know, it takes money to make money, and sometimes you got to sacrifice a little bit to, you know, hopefully get more on the back end. So, you know, that's something that is, you know, it doesn't seem like a fair thing to write a song and then have somebody claim part of a songwriting credit, but, you know, that's kind of the business we're in. It's kind of an ugly business, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Where there are people out there that do that, you know?
So does Universal own part of your publishing?
Yeah, Universal owns the publishing side of it.
Okay.
You know, I own the writer's share, they own the publisher's share.
Okay, so it's a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
So if someone's trying to get into getting placements in film and TV, do you have a way you'd recommend going about it? I mean, I know you found someone at the beginning.
Yeah, I was really lucky that or blessed to find that. It just kind of fell into my lap. You know, you could submit music to lots of different companies. And the best way to do it, I think, is to just find legitimate companies that are out there, like Universal Music, First Com, represents a bunch of labels, and reach out to somebody at those companies and find out who you can submit your music to and make that connection, because you just can't send a link or an MP3 and hope that somebody will discover it. You need to make that relationship, you know,
right,
and find out somebody. And you also have to, you know, it's once again, it's, you know, being at the right place at the right time, and you know, knowing that you also have to have many different versions of your songs. So one of the smartest things you do is when you create a song in whatever format you create it in, like say I use Pro Tools, some people use Logic, some people use whatever. So you have to make sure you always make many digital copies of your sessions, because a lot of times when they use a song in a movie, they'll want an instrumental version. Sometimes maybe they'll want just the vocals. Sometimes they'll want beats and bass mix. They'll make you do many different versions. So when you create your music, make sure you back all that stuff up and have a bunch of copies. And everybody knows, you know, hard drives crash. So, you know, I make 2 or 3 copies of every session I do.
Yeah.
And digital media is cheap now, so you can, you know, put it on a shelf. You know, you're safe. Make another couple copies, put it on a shelf. It's cheap. You know, fill up those drives. But the good news is they're wanting different mixes of your songs. But you also get paid when they use it. And the reason they do this is because TV and film, like the way the world moves so fast now, our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And when they do cuts for commercials, TV shows, and films, you know, they used to have long, minute-long, 2-minute-long scenes for movies. Now it's like bam, 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 bam. They're cutting so fast,
right?
And they need a lot of content for that. They need a lot of music. So they may use your song in a movie or a TV show, and they may use like the different mixes for different parts, for background, you know, foreground. And so the good news is you get paid every time they use even those other mixes of it. So it's good, you know, but it's definitely something where if you have an amazing song that you've written and created, and you have a mix of it, but you don't have that session of it, that could possibly keep you from them using it, you know, or you may have to go back in and record it all over again, which nobody, you know, wants to do that.
Yeah.
So you just have to be very proactive, and you have to know that this is all important stuff if this is what you want to get into.
It's great advice. And can you explain a little bit of the difference between if the music's played in the foreground or background?
Absolutely.
Or how long it's played? It all kind of factors into what your paycheck is.
You are absolutely right. The first thing that factors in is how long they use, how much time they use of a song. 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute long. I mean, you may get paid, $2 for them using a background part for 10 seconds, And then again, if it's a foreground part, if it's right up front in the mix, it's not just like, for example, if I'm walking through a club in a scene and talking to guys and there's a DJ spinning and you can hear a song in the background, I have a lot of dance tracks that are used like that. That's background music because it's way in the back. If it's used as a feature, if there's, say you're pondering, there's a scene where you're just looking out the window and you're thinking about your life and you hear the strings and that's music used in the foreground because that's right in the scene. You get paid more from that.
Right.
So you want and if you have a song and major networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, they're going to pay a lot more than cable, Bravo, MTV,
It's based on the audience.
Yep. It's based on Nielsen ratings and who's watching, and it's based on advertising dollars. That it all goes back to money. They all rate it like anything in the way the world works. But you want to get it prime time, major network, and you want them to use 2 minutes of your song. That's what you want.
Yeah.
That's the barometer, the parameters that will pay you more.
Yeah.
I had one song in a hair club for men commercial, and it was a late night infomercial kind of thing. They used almost 2 minutes of my song, and it was feature. And I had just hired a guy to come out and build my studio, and that one usage paid for my studio.
Amazing.
So, but then again, I'm Bourne Identity, huge movie. My song was in the background, only used for 10 seconds. It may air on TV and may make $10. So it's all, you never know.
Right.
You never know. It's like bookends. It could be one thing or the other.
And which performing rights organization are you with?
I've been with ASCAP for almost 30 years.
Is there a reason you would recommend ASCAP over BMI or CSAC?
It's so funny. I'm not I can't even really remember the reason why I chose ASCAP over BMI because they're both great, and I have friends that work at both, and I have people that I know that are with both. It's kind of apples and oranges. They're both different. Now CSAC is great. I also have a whole catalog with CSAC because Universal now goes through them. Oh, so. And they're great. So I think it's kind of like apples, oranges, bananas. They're all great. They all kind of do the same thing. They're all kind of fruit, but they're all a little different. I think, you just, find one that feels right. I think also getting somebody on the phone was important to me. And ASCAP, I can still call that number and I know I'm going to get somebody on the phone and they can help me. And they don't even have to look anything up. They just can look at my phone number and say, hey, what's your social? They can tell me what my royalty rate, what my royalty is going to be this month. I always, and I had some serious legal issues a few years ago that we won't necessarily get into right now, but they really helped me deal with all that and get some stuff straightened out, and where I had gotten myself into some publishing problems.
Wow.
But that's another one of the things, making good decisions, making honest decisions, having integrity, that's important, particularly now in the way the business is, because we live in the digital age and people aren't making money on music. They're making money touring, and making music is kind of just promoting that. But record labels that are still in business are not in the business. They're in the business to make money. So you have to be really careful when you poke that hornet's nest or mess with these companies now, because you will get sued. And it's not pretty,
I bet.
And they don't care. And you want to avoid that at all costs. So you want to do things on the up and up. And the best advice I could give to anybody, and not just the music business, in any business, is don't never sign anything without having a lawyer look at it and tell you what you're signing.
Yeah.
Because I did that, made that mistake, never make that again.
Yeah, definitely learn from your experience, because, I mean, that's something you even hear as a young artist. You hear, don't sign anything, but then like you get so excited. Here's an opportunity, and I haven't had this before, and
I know
I'm good. I'll sign it. Whatever you want.
I know. I did it. Like it's like that story of Suge Knight presenting Tupac the contract on a napkin. When he's in jail, he's like, "I'll do it. Get me out of here."
Yeah.
I'll do anything. So man, you
got to think long term.
You got to think long term.
Right.
Exactly.
So you've worked with a number of successful people over the years. Who's the most successful person you've worked with, in your opinion, and what are the qualities they have that you admire?
Oh my God, I've worked with so many people, from one end of the spectrum to the other. That I can't necessarily just pick one.
So who comes to mind kind of right away?
God, there's been so many. I think being a kind person is probably at the top of my list of what's important, because I've worked with so many people, and some have been really kind and some haven't. And that's not to say that maybe they weren't having a bad day or something. You got to factor all that in. But it's just, I mean, I know one of the Beatles, and if there's anybody in this world that could possibly be a jerk, it would be somebody as big as the Beatles or whoever, and he's the nicest guy, the most humble guy in the world. So I think that you just have to, being kind is where it's at, man, and I've worked with some people that were not so kind and patient, and it's just like, man, life is too short. Let's love one another,
Yeah.
But, and being professional is huge. I've worked with some huge artists that were incredibly professional, and to me that, is just, I leave when you have those two things together, man, this person was so successful and so kind and so professional at the same time. You just leave with that, and you're like, man, I'll never forget that experience. That was amazing. And then it makes me want to do that. Whoever I work with, I want to take all of that and say, man, if that person can be that cool, I want to try to be the same. You know?
Imagine you could leave that effect on everyone you come across.
Absolutely.
Instead of like, that guy's an asshole.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're in Hollywood long enough, you come across, you end up meeting your heroes and people that you never could imagine working with. And then you end up producing records for them, working with them, doing this. And I think that just, it really pays, man. And what's that saying? I can't even think of what it is, but it just pays to be cool, right?
let's go with that saying. It pays to be cool.
It really does. It really does.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned working with William Shatner?
Working with William Shatner.
Yeah.
He has a motto that he has in life, and he says yes to everything. And I love that.
Still, even at this point, he says yes to everything.
At 84, 85 years old, he is the coolest guy you'll ever meet. We go over there and watch football with him and his family and friends, and you'll see Rush Limbaugh, and you'll see Henry Rollins, and you'll see Joe Walsh, and you'll see all these crazy people all watching football. He's just so cool, man. He says yes to everything. You want to do a record? Yeah, let's do it. You want to go on tour? Yeah, let's do it. How about writing another Star Trek book? Let's do it. He says yes to everything, and I think when you do that, there's something about life, man, that I spent so much time when I first came out to LA, and I'm like, I don't know if I should do that. I don't know if that's going to be right. I don't know. No, I don't think so. That's going to be too difficult. How am I going to grow and evolve if I don't allow myself to experience these things and meet different people and get out of my comfort zone? And he says yes to everything. And I like that. So that's one of the best
I love that
things.
idea, but does he say yes to something he thinks is a bad idea, or just
No,
it
I
has
don't,
to at
I
least
don't
be a
think
good
so.
idea?
I think there's got to be some parameters. You can't say, hey, we're going to go bungee cord off the Hilton right now. Let's go do it. That doesn't sound like a great idea. But I think that
It might be.
Yeah, to some people, right? But I think just the general ideology of this, like saying yes to things in life and experiencing things, and that is that's exciting, man. That's when magic happens in life, is when you say yes to stuff and not no to everything. And I'm too cool to do that. I'm gonna pass. I've experienced way too many people in this business like that, and I'll never forget that. When people say, "No, I'm gonna pass," it's like, why are you gonna pass? Why are you not gonna do something that it could end up being one of the most amazing experiences of your life?
Yeah, we get that a lot, especially booking artists,
Absolutely.
where you're like, what are you going to be doing instead? Just sitting on your couch watching TV? So you're not going to go, play shows and make this money?
I have people, labels will call about a project that they're trying to work out, and that happens every day. Like you're going to choose not to work where you could spend a day, paying your rent by working for a couple hours. Why would you say no? It's not like you're working with somebody that is what they represent is everything against your. No, you're just saying no because you're just saying no, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're being lazy, or you're being fearful, or, just say yes. That's what I think. I like that. I'm trying to do more of that.
Yeah. So when you take someone under your wing, what's the one piece of advice that you always make sure to give them?
Well, once again, the thing about not signing anything without having an attorney looking at it, that's probably, to me, there's nothing that scares me more than getting myself into trouble and then having to get out of it. So I try to avoid that at all costs. Listen, life's going to throw us lots of challenges, and that's just life. But when there's stuff that I can keep myself from doing that's going to cause me even more strife or difficulty or money or trouble, I'm going to not do that. So I try to say, hey, listen, here are the things I did that really made things rough for me, and that was doing some stuff, signing some bad deals, not having people look at it, maybe trying to hustle, and back when I was first out here, you can get into a place when you're desperate and you're just trying to make it in the business or in any business, where you kind of compromise your morals and values a little bit, and you can say, well, maybe they won't catch me if I do this, or a little bit of this, or double dip in here. But that stuff always comes back and gets you. Yeah. And I know because, I did, and it came back and get me, and I learned a lesson. It's like, I knew not to make those decisions. But, when you're desperate and you're broke and you're like, man, how am I going to pay my rent this month? All right, maybe I'll try a little bit of this. It's like, it always comes back to get you.
And it might start out desperate and broke, and then it just becomes greedy because,
absolutely.
I got away with it last time, so let me try this again.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. And you know how it is, man. It worked one time, it'll work again. I can get away with it, and we start thinking in that way, and that's not good enough.
Yeah, I agree. So, you just have to do right by the people you work with.
Amen.
Because once you ruin your reputation, there's no coming back from it. Or
that's all you got.
Yeah,
that's all you got. And you really only have one chance for that out here. Maybe you get a second chance if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah. But I wouldn't take that chance.
Nope, I don't want to either, man. I would much rather just do the right thing. It always pays.
Yeah. So the saying that you're an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? Have you heard that saying?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar. I'm familiar with that.
So who are your 5 people?
Oh my God. Well, lately or in general?
I guess in general.
Probably my wife and my little girl, and I would guess William Shatner these days because we're doing a lot of work on his record. And that is what is that? That's an amalgamation of who we are.
Well, I guess the point I'm trying to get to is, do you think it's important to be around people who inspire you? Obviously, family is so important, and that's number one. But beyond that,
absolutely. I mean, I think that I guess it goes back to the old saying is, you are the company you keep.
Mm-hmm.
So I absolutely think that when I'm around people who are honest and work hard and want to do the right thing, that rubs off on me, and vice versa,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Could you take us to a rock bottom moment where you considered quitting the business? And what did you do to turn things around?
I don't know if I ever considered quitting the business because first and foremost, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty much a one-trick pony. I do music and that's it. And I realized there's people a lot more talented than me, and I realized there's people, I'm right. I try to keep myself pretty as humble as I can, realistic as I can. So I could never do it. I don't know what else I would do. There's no backup plan. There's no backup plan.
Wow.
I wish I had one, but I used to say when I was a kid or younger, I would say, my mom would say, you got to have a backup plan. You got to have a backup plan. And I'm like, I don't have a backup plan. And if I did, maybe I'd fall back on it, So there was never a backup plan. It was just, full speed ahead, music. Hopefully God will give me a way to make a living doing this. You know? And, that happened. Thank God that happened.
Do you think for anyone who's focused and driven enough that that's the case, that they don't need a backup plan?
It's not that they don't need a backup plan, but today, the way the world is and the way the business is, you have to have a way to make a living. And when I was coming up, you could still make a living in the music business making records, you know, because there were many different parts of the pie. You'd get record advances, you'd get record royalties, you'd go on tour, you had all these ways to make a living to add up to what you were making. You have to have a way to finance you making music. So that's the trick today, is like, how do I make it in the business? And so, that's the, what is it, the $45,000 question or whatever the saying is. And that's what I would say is find out whatever else it is that you enjoy besides music, and figure out a way to monetize that.
Yeah.
If you do computer graphics, great. If you like helping people, I don't know, maybe get a drug counseling degree or something. Find a way, and it's not to say to have a backup plan, but you have to have what would be a good word for it? You have to have something to pay the bills.
There's multiple streams of income that I think is more important these days maybe than ever. So, and a lot of what you're saying can tie back into music. So if you're a graphic designer, you could be offering those services up to artists that you want to work with, and figuring out a way to do trades or things like that.
Absolutely. And and another thing is, back when I was coming up, you were one thing. You were either a drummer in a band, or you were an engineer in the studio, or you were a record producer, or you were an artist, in the business. Now I have to wear so many hats. If I'm producing a record, I'm engineering that record, and I'm mixing that record. So I'm 3 hats right there, and I'm probably playing drums on it or programming. I might bring in somebody to do something that I don't do as well, delegating some of that. But you have to wear a lot of hats, and you really need to know Pro Tools, or you need to know Logic. You need to, because that's an essential tool that you can also make money, do even while you're working on your career. You can help other people. You can go run, be a Pro Tools engineer on somebody else's record, or, there's just a ton of that kind of work out here. So you got to put all those tools in your toolbox,
Yeah, I agree.
You really need to know all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the nice thing is it's easier these days to learn it all.
Yep.
Thank
God for YouTube.
Yeah, right.
I reference it. I actually have YouTube Red, which is $10 a month, and it gets rid of all the commercials, because I use YouTube. YouTube is one of my most valuable tools for referencing for anything. I mean, I may literally be in a record and be stuck having a Pro Tools problem, and I'm like, 10 seconds later, I pop on my laptop and go on YouTube, and I'm back up and running. I figured out somebody has uploaded something that's going to help me. Yeah. Yeah. Or the toilet gets stuck, or you need to, change your wiper blades out. It's all on there,
So that $10 a month is worth it.
I don't have to do any commercials or anything. It's the greatest.
Time is money.
Man. Time is money, man. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when you're faced with a big, daunting task that scares you, how do you go about handling it?
Well, the first thing I do is I pray about it, and I try not to freak out, and just breathe and realize that nobody's going to die usually. I'm not a surgeon or somebody like that, so that's good. Put it in perspective. And there's a couple of little tools I like to do. I like to realize that sometimes you just got to look down at what you got to do right in front of you. You don't have to look at the end and go, God, this is a marathon. How am I going to get to the end of it? You just go put one foot right in front of the other. Like, what do I have to do now? Whatever it is, you just have to take it one step at a time, and not bite off more than you can chew, and realize that it's going to get done. It's, and also you have to realize, some people like me, I will anticipate something being worse than it is when it's a situation like I have to do something I don't want to do, or it's going to be difficult or frightening. My mind will make it so much worse than it is, and I have to remind myself of that. Say, it's not going to be that bad. It's going to be fine. Take it easy. Don't overthink it. Don't make it something. My wife calls me Johnny Drama all the time, because I just dramatize everything, make it worse. And she's like, take it easy. It's going to be fine. Breathe.
A lot of times it could be worse in your head than it really is going to be in real life.
You know what? It always is. And mine, and that's just speaking from my experience, I will always go through that on the other side, and I will say, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, because I will always think it worse. You know? Absolutely.
So I kind of have a last section that's called the encore that's kind of quick
Cool.
questions. What's the worst part of your job that no one in their right mind would want to do?
I don't think it's that bad, but I have to do a lot of just a lot of administrative work, which I hate. And it's not that nobody in their right mind would want to do it, but a lot of typing and filling and doing this kind of stuff, just behind the scenes stuff that need to get done. It's not just go in there and create this great song and then hand it to the guy and say, go put it in stuff. I have to label tracks, and you have to there's just a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So there's nothing bad. It's just annoying.
I mean, for any of us artistic types, I feel like that's probably the annoying part.
And just to add to that, I think because of the way things are, sometimes it's feast or famine. That's another thing that some people might not want to, live like that. They may want a steady paycheck, and listen, there's something to be said about that. And in my business, man, it's raining or it's drought. It's all or none, and sometimes it's laughable how crazy it all hits at once, and you're just like, how am I going to get all this done? And then for 2 months later, you're like, please God, give me some work. So
how do you stay positive during those times where it feels like, well, I've got to get a job? Like, what am I going to do to pay the rent?
It just seems like the music business it's never ending, and I just have faith. I just have faith in God. And I'm like, he didn't bring me to this point to let me go. He's taking care of me. He does everything, and sometimes get crazy, and sometimes it seems like it's in the 11th hour when things happen. But I always can look back on it and say, he's in control. I'm not. I just gotta get out of the fear, get in the faith, and things are cool.
Yeah, that's great. If you had a $10,000 budget to release an album that was already mixed, mastered, and packaged, what would you spend it on?
That's a good question. If it was already done, I think that I would probably just figure out the best way to market it, put that into marketing it and getting it, you want to maximize every cent you have to spend. And that's the challenging part these days is like, if all that has been done, you don't have to spend any money on making it, then it's all about selling it. What can I do? How can I use that $10,000? And I would probably get on the phone and talk to a few people and say, I think one of the smartest things we can do is say, I don't know. Because I think thinking we know it all could be one of our biggest, Achilles heel. And the older I get, the more I realize that I know nothing about this world and everything. And so I would consult some people and figure out what's the best way to spend that money, maximize it,
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people I've asked that question to who come from more of the big business of music, even though it's more indie, they still are like, I don't know what I'd do with 10,000. That's nothing, know?
Yeah, really.
But that's why I asked that question, because a lot of people are lucky if they even have $10,000 to put behind a record.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a tough question. It's a tough number because $10,000 is like, hey man, that's a lot of money. But when you're talking about a budget for a record or really buying advertising dollars is not cheap. Yeah. You look at commercials and, millions of dollars. So what are you going to do? That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. Knowing everything you know now, do you feel like following your passion is good advice?
Absolutely. I don't think that you really live. If you have a passion, the only way you feel like you're really living your life is by following that, and not everybody has that. And it could be like a blessing and a curse, because that like financially in the music business, it's but you have to absolutely follow your passion. If you're passionate about something, man, you have to, otherwise you're going to feel like you're not living, That's a blessing to have something that you're so passionate about. And if you have that, that's a gift. You got to run with it.
That's true. Looking back at your 21-year-old self, what did you think you couldn't live without, but now realize isn't so important?
Good question. That I couldn't live without. I don't know. You got me on that one.
All right.
That's one of those that I'll be thinking about the rest of the day.
All right. Text me and let me know.
I will.
If an evil dictator took over the world and banned all art, but allowed each person to keep one album and one book, what would you choose?
One album and one book. I'd probably choose the Bible as my book, Or I'd choose as a record, what would my album be? Maybe something classical or something timeless. I don't know. Maybe like a John Coltrane album or something like that. I don't know. Something that you could listen to forever and be inspired by it. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. If you could send a 280 character tweet that everyone in the world would see, what would it say?
I would just say, man, life is short. Try to love one another. And I don't know about the rest of the characters, but
you don't have to fill up all the characters.
I'd keep it simple.
Sometimes simplicity is the best.
Yeah, keep it simple, man. It's always better for me.
Perfect. And where can people find you online?
I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Adam Hamilton 1, or they could hit me up on my studio website, Palm Ranch Studios. So I'm pretty easy to find, pretty easy to get in touch with.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks
for
having me.
I really appreciate it. That was great.
Oh, right on, man.
Thanks again, y'all, for tuning in. Thanks again to Adam for joining us. And if you want updates on the show and you want alerts when new shows are coming out, subscribe on the podcast app or tune in or Stitcher. And please tell a friend. Let's spread the word. Let's build this thing bigger. Let's provide more value to everyone out there trying to do something better with their lives. And I'm learning from you. So if you have any questions or you have any things you'd like to see me address on the show, feel free to email me at podcast@focusednoise.com. Until next week, peace.